Okay, we're gonna skip the preamble today and just go right into the meeting. So I'd like to call the meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Or pledge of allegiance? Oh, roll call, okay. Alderman Morgan Adams?
Here?
Alderman Cameron?
Here.
Alderman Dolick?
Here.
Alderman Anderson?
Here.
Please stand for the pledge. Approval of minutes, I need a motion, item A, to approve the March 11th, 2024 City Council regular meeting minutes.
So moved.
Second, Anderson.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Alderman Dolick?
Aye.
Alderman Morgan Adams?
Aye.
Alderman Cameron?
Aye.
Alderman Anderson?
Aye.
Motion passes. Item 4, presentations. Item A, fiscal year 24-25 City of Prospect Heights budget presentation. We turn this over to City Administrator Joe Wade.
Thank you. This is our second presentation before the council. The last meeting, we went over the operating budget, and tonight it's the capital budget, sewer, the sewer fund, water fund, special service area funds, debt service, just really everything else that's left in the budget. Our department directors and our city engineer is here tonight. They've worked very hard on this product. What I do want to stress is what's looking good for the capital budget is that maybe if you noticed, we've removed some of the, capital budgets are often multi-year projects, and they might take 3 or 4 years. And the good news is a few of them have fallen off the capital budget this year, which means they're being done or they've been completed. Big projects such as Arlington Countryside, starting this month is the Wolf Road Sidewalk. We've carried those in the capital budget for several years. We'll have new items coming up, but I just want to call your attention to that. And at that, I'm going to turn it over to Sherry Greco from the Finance Department. She and Bob have scrub the numbers, they update things, they work with Public Works and Engineering. And Sherry, if you want to introduce, take us out tonight, would be appreciated.
Here we go. Hi everybody, here we are at our second workshop for the budget. We're going to start off tonight's agenda is first we're going to do recap, fund balance projection, capital improvement funding, some significant highlights to point out that we want to keep in mind as we go through the details. We'll go through the individual funds listed there, and you can see all the rest of them that we didn't cover at the last meeting. And then we'll talk about the details of capital improvements. Mark and our city's engineer, Dan, have worked hard to have pictures and explanations and statuses, so we'll go through that at the last piece. So first thing here is the fund balance projection. Everybody has a printout, I think, of the slides, but it's also going to be on the screen there. First part of this I want to talk about is the first line, the general fund. Recently, the audit report was presented last meeting, and our general fund ending fund balance is $17.8 million. We're projecting the 23-24 results to come to 12.196. I highlighted that net revenue and expense with the minus 5.6 million. That includes the proposed resolution that we have coming to council today for the transfers to police pension and capital. So that resolution is reflected in these numbers already. If we come into 24, the end of 24 at 12.1 million, our budget for 25 is pretty much balanced. You'll see it nets to about 245,000. So that'll get us to the end of 25 with 12.4 million in the general fund. If you look at the bottom there, breaks that general fund budget, fund balance down between non-spendable, what's restricted, what's committed, and what's unassigned. We still have our emergency reserve fund at 3.3 million, that's according to our fund balance policy. And in addition, the unassigned fund balance will be 8.3, which represents 78% of the general fund expenditures. Pretty strong position to be in. The key thing to note there is we'll have that 78% additional unassigned fund balance in addition to that transfers that we're proposing at this meeting. So that's where we predict or estimate we'll be at the end of April 25. The proposed budget column, net revenue and expense, as you go down, you can see the net funds, for every fund, what we have budgeted out to. So the overall city budget will end up as a positive 1.6 million. Any questions on that? Okay. The next slide shows the capital improvement plan, the overall summary of the numbers. We have our 5 years going out to a 5-year total, and then our future projects as well. When we get to that part of the presentation, we'll go through the detailed specific projects, but this is the overall kind of big picture slide to show where we're at funding-wise. The 5-year total of our planned projects is the $42 million in cost. We are coming into fiscal year '25 with an estimated 10.4 million fund balance in capital. Again, that includes the transfer that we're proposing in the resolution later on in the meeting. So starting off fiscal '25 with 10 million, we're planning the $1 million, $1.1 million, we're putting $1 million from capital fund every year, in addition to $110,000 from SWANK. So 1.1 million for 5 years gives us an additional 5.5 million. We have already secured grants of 8 million. That's in the upper table as well on the second line, grants already awarded to the city, 8.8 million. And that leaves us with potential grants to be determined and a potential bid for a referendum coming up as our debt service rolls off. That gives us an estimated 45 million in sources, and at the end of this 5-year plan, our fund balance would be 2.9 million in support of future projects of 12 million. Now, this is really conservative. It doesn't include any grants in years 27, 28, or 29. So the 2.9 million is if we receive no grants. We don't know what those are, or there's really no basis to estimate those at this point. So that's where this will end up at the end of 29, 5 years. Any questions on that? Here's just some specific highlights as we drill down into the individual funds. The general fund detail we reviewed at our last workshop. I just want to highlight by department what our the most significant items are. Admin and finance proposed budget includes an upgrade to our internal accounting system and record keeping to their newest version of Connect, which is already been on about 5+ years. That includes an AP workflow module, which would automate our accounts payable processing, so we get a little bit more efficient there. That's an initial investment of $18,000. Building and zoning, we heard from Dan. He's budgeting a proposal for digitizing and getting a new record management system. That's at a total cost of $100,000. Public Works is proposing their full-time admin assistant at $84,000. There's our interfund transfers for '25. We're including $1 million for general fund to capital and $110,000 from SWANK to capital. General fund also provides support to the parking fund. This year, fiscal '25, it's going to be $115,000. The resolution we're proposing for fiscal '24, the 5.5 million to capital, 2.0 million to police pension, and 100,000 for SSA Fund 1, so we can close that fund. DEA for public safety, They're looking at a facility redesign, $105,000, and the state mandated body worn cameras, $15,000 for the first year, and then ongoing annual costs of $20,000 to support those cameras. Police pension, $1.65 million is the recommended contribution from the actuaries. Based on the 2023 levy, we're gonna receive $480,000 of that from the levy. General fund portion of that would be 1.145. This is the first year in a long time we're proposing 100% contribution on what is recommended. Capital improvements, our plan for fiscal '25 is project costs of $7.3 million, which are covered by grants already awarded of about $5.4, leaving the city's portion local support $1.9 million. Lastly, included in our budget is our water rate increase and our tank rate increase. Water rate increase is 4%, going from $57.93 last year to $60.25 we're proposing for fiscal '25. The swank rate, we're increasing it by $1 for all service levels, single family, multi-family, townhouses, etc. Those are the big highlights here. Any questions? Okay, now we're into the details of the individual funds. Motor fuel tax fund remains consistent revenue-wise from prior years. The budgeted revenue is $825,000. We've held off for a couple of years budgeting any expenses in the MFT funds to save up for some of the bigger projects. And this year we budgeted from MFT $339,000 for the Will Laurel Flood Control Project. And any unspent monies in MFT, they're always restricted for future level costs and approved projects. Tourism, our hotel tax revenue is near pre-pandemic levels, so we're happy to announce that. Fiscal '25 budget is $750 compared to $671 from last year. The top 4 payers reflect an increase of 25% from year to year, so we recognize a big significant jump in the past year. They're utilizing capacity better, and so that's reflected in this revenue. Expenditures are really determined by the agreement, the ordinance for the tourism district, the grant disbursements and police services are 42.5% of previous year's revenues. That's gonna give us $229,000 for police services in our budget for fiscal '25, and $229,000 will be issued as grant disbursements as well. Capital improvements, we'll get into more detail. We've added a couple of projects in for this fiscal '25. We're looking at city monument signs, a camera program, and design costs for a lighting project there on Apple and Winkleman. Construction for the lighting project will then be planned for fiscal '26, $185,000. DEA fund. The revenue comes from the state based on an equitable sharing agreement that we have. We provide an officer for some federal cases, and we would get a percentage of whatever is taken at those scenes. That comes when they pay us. We don't have an estimate of when it's coming. We don't know how much it's going to be. We do have a listing of the cases we haven't been paid for, but as far as what our percentage of that amount would be, we don't know. So revenue, according to the guidelines of the program, are not to be budgeted. We don't budget for revenue. Expenditures, $223,000 is budgeted for fiscal '25 versus $157 in '24. The big projects there are twofold. There's proposed a facility update and remodel to separate the patrol and detective divisions. New furniture, a redesign on the layout, and some updates there. Last time the area was updated was 2012. In lieu of this project coming to the table, the annual purchase of new squads has been deferred to fiscal '26. Also in the DEA is the cost of the state mandated by more cameras, which I didn't list here. That's about $20,000 the first year. Solid waste, our revenue's going to include a $1 per month increase for all the costs, single family, townhomes, multifamily, containers, roll-offs, $1 increase. That's based on the fact that there's limited resources in this fund, it's just these fees, but yet the costs have to be still supported. So as those costs increase, the rate has to increase. There's no other way to do it if we're gonna leave it as a self-supporting fund. So we're gonna watch closely on that and just kind of monitor how that goes going forward. The expenses in the fund, they do, there's a service charge back to the general fund for administrative and overhead costs, 105, and the swing charges are projected to increase by about 6%. Again, I'll mention the transfer, the swing will contribute to capital, 110,000, based on this year's proposed budget versus last year of 40,000. Our SSA funds, there's not much activity there, there's no longer a tax levy, and basically what's left there is accumulation of some cash that is on hand as reserves for future costs to be incurred. We still do get a tax levy on SSA 5 and 8, no revenue coming in for SSA 1 to 4 any longer. Expenditures, no significant expenditures are planned. SSA 1 has a amount due to the general fund of about $100,000. So without any anticipation of revenue coming in to cover that payable to the general fund, that's why we're requesting the transfer from the general, kind of like to write that off and absorb that. Any future costs for SSA 1 will have to be borne by the sewer fund going forward. Parking fund. Revenue from the parking fund is projected to be flat. We're looking at $14,000 for fiscal '25 versus $13,000 from fiscal '24. Expenditures are basically consistent. We have some building maintenance budgeted this year for interior and exterior repairs. And the shortfall, as has been historically covered, the operation by the general. 115 is our budgeted amount for this year, and 112 was fiscal '24.
Jerry, is there a balance that keeps growing of a due to from the parking fund to the general fund? Or is that just, the general fund just pays whatever expenses come up for the?
We started about 3 years ago, I think, making the actual transfer so the interfund balance wouldn't grow. I think about 500,000 due to the general fund. So that's very similar to SSA 1 with 100,000 that we're not going to see in revenue. It's the same with parking.
So that's another restriction to the general fund balance.
Yes. That's one of the restricted ones in the fund balance, is that.
Is that done in the hopes that someday we might get that back from somewhere and we want to keep recognizing it as a due to?
At any point in time, we could make the call, but yes, we need to probably talk about it and explore, is there anything else we can do or will ever do or want to do? And then we can talk about
I
it.
think we, just to add, that would be highly unlikely. And in general, it's not uncommon for cities that have train stations, it's a cost center. And the costs exceed the revenues. It's part of doing business.
Right, but I just think it'd be better if we accounted for it and just bit the bullet and expensed it every year through the general fund, or had a transfer from general fund to parking, just so that we're not, because we say we have the money that's, in the general fund balance, but it's really got these restrictions to it.
Right. I mean, we could similarly, like, we can take care of both of those in the same year. We can do that for fiscal '24 and then just clean the slate and move forward. Or we can piece it.
I just was curious why we kept that going.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's an accounting log, but I don't think realistically we'll ever,
Right.
We'll let us-
Okay.
yeah.
So we're gonna take care of
That'd be good.
The debt service funds are funded with revenue from property taxes, 1.5 million to cover our debt service requirements for fiscal '25. The expenditures are pretty much matched to that. The revenue from the taxes come in to pay the principal and interest. Sewer fund, revenue is projected to be flat, about 800,000, we make 200 a quarter, and at this point, there's been no planned increase in rates that's been discussed yet. Expenditures, we do have a capital number, 327,000 budgeted for ongoing system improvements. If we all recall, we did the camera project a year or two ago, analyzing through the sewer, which areas needed repair and replacement. So we're budgeting 327,000 to just continue with that program. Next up is the water rate, and I'll turn it over to Joe.
Thanks, Sherry. So to go over the water rate, we noticed that every year we review the water rates on an annual basis, and to ensure all the fees are in line with costs incurred to deliver the services that are needed. This year, as we did a review of the Illinois American Water invoices, it showed an increase of about 54% over for the first 7 months of '24. According to Illinois American Water, they had done a request to the ICC for a rate increase to do some infrastructure work, and that was approved by the ICC to go ahead and do that. And I believe, looking at the agreement, there's a section in that agreement that says that Prospect Heights would follow if an increase has happened through the ICC, Prospect Heights would have to follow that agreement with Illinois American Water. So we saw the increase happen, and that's why you see here on this slide here that we had to increase the variable costs of $1.85 per 1,000 gallons to take care of that increase of 50 about, and most of it's due because of the pass-through charges from year to year. About 51% was an increase of pass-through charges. If you see down on the slide here from January and June, increased by 51%. So what we're looking at a proposal for a water rate of $60.28, which is a 4% increase, $2.34 from the previous year. And hopefully that the Millwood Memorial doesn't raise any more of the rates again. The thing, I think they have, this is the one-time thing for the infrastructure, and I believe the infrastructure is supposed to be starting in '25, according to what they had on the website for the projects. One thing also on here is the debt service charge has gone down by 14 cents. This is for the debt service payment we have to make that went down, which will be paid in full by the end of the year, December of '24. We also had delivery charges went down by about 39%, and that's just because of how we calculated this, the budgeted expenses and the water costs. So we're able to reduce that part of it. The only part we just couldn't reduce is the per gallon cost. Any questions on the water rate? Nope, okay. So it's not here, so. The next is the pension fund contribution. Regarding the pension fund contribution, it's made up of two components. We have the annual tax levy, which is capped at a 5% annual increase, and then the contribution from the general fund, which continues to increase because you look at it, we're only getting 5% from the tax levy, so most of that money is going to have to be made up by the general fund amount to get to the to get to the required funding. And in '24, the required contribution per the pension fund's actuary is $1.625 million. The state also puts out a minimum requirement to fund the pension fund, and that's based from the consolidated pension system now that they're in, and that was at $814,000. So for fiscal '25, we are proposing 100% of the requirement, which would be the 1.625 million to bring us up to 100%. If you also notice on this slide, we also have, for this year, the proposed general fund transfer to the police fund of $2 million. And in that number also, we also just did a resolution, I think a month ago, to contribute another $240,000 to the pension fund to get us into a nice funding level that we saw decreased because of actually market fluctuations and also tax levy numbers coming in. On this slide here, we just kind of want to show where we, as a city, stands with other surrounding communities here. And on here, you see that for fiscal year '22, there was a decrease in market values on some of the pension funds, which shows a decrease in the funding levels. And we went from 66% to 54%. So I think with us proposing the 1.625 million, we'll be able to bring that percentage up, and hopefully with this year, the favorable market rates that will show next year that we're, the funding levels are getting back into that 60-70% range. And also that if approved tonight, the 2 million transfer from the general fund to the police pension fund will also show an increase in the funding level and get us at a nice funding rate and carry forward. And also with the market, the way it's going right now, it's going to be a big help also for that.
So, just a quick question on that. The $2 million is like about 12-14% of our unfunded liability. And I'm not a math person, so I'm going to ask you, because you guys probably are. Would that somehow equate to if we're decreasing our liability by 10% or a little more than 10%, would that increase our fundedness by the same percentage? It should be in line with that or close to that?
Close to that. I don't know if it'll be, exactly 14. Again, putting that 2 million in, and with the market the way it's going, could get to that percentage that you're looking at, 14%. So.
Okay.
The only thing to keep in mind is our contribution compared in earnings compared to the market impact on the up and down of that liability is, ours is small. The market in '23, which is 24% increase based on S&P, the next valuation that we get is gonna probably, show a higher funding percentage just because of the market climb on those
Without the
investments.
2 million.
Even
Right.
without the 2 million. So that coupled with the 2 million that hopefully will earn this coming year, it's gonna be positive. And it's just hard to say because the market is the bigger driver than what we are. So let's keep that in mind, but I'm expecting it's gonna look pretty good.
Because we have about $1.5 million or so come out every year in payments. Is that
I believe so, yes.
okay?
And that's it here for the pension and the water rate. Any question regarding those? And I'll turn it over to Dan and Mark for the capital improvement plan.
All righty. The first sheet we're going to skip, and we'll come back to that. That's Sherry's overview. We're not going to go into the details of that because we're going to get the meat and potatoes on the next couple slides here. Dan, if you don't mind jumping in a little bit on the first one here, street resurfacing.
Sure. For the street resurfacing, there's 4 line items there. The first one, design engineering. The intent there is to provide an update to the roadway evaluation, have that plan ready to go when the referendum hits. It also relates to the second line item there, which is a 2025 resurfacing program. A little bit of background there. The city, as you know, received Rebuild Illinois funds from the state of Illinois. Those are like MFT funds, but they have to be spent by July 1st, 2025. About 2/3 of that balance of the city received $1,071,000 and change. About 2/3 of that will go to the Willow and Owen project. The remainder there would be used up by a resurfacing project in 2025 in May or June is kind of what we're thinking, to make sure that's spent by July 1st, 2025. So those are those two items. The second two items do relate to the longer-term resurfacing project, which would be funded through the referendum.
So hopefully we'll, in the next couple of years, we'll talk about that and we'll get that moved along. So that's the basic idea of the roads. There's a second slide here. And this just kind of represents what Dan had just spoke to, and also when we do the street index survey of how things are, we'll have a current evaluation of the roads and where our first bite at the apple is going to be. You go to the next one, please. Dan, you want to engineer the stormwater?
Sure. And we can go forward to the next slide. So this is there's a number of stormwater projects in here spread out over the next 4 or 5 years. The first one, the Willow Road Flood Control Project, as you know, that's been in the process of engineering for several years now. We're kind of in the stretch run of that. We've submitted to IDOT, submitted to Cook County Division of Transportation and Highways. We anticipate getting this out to bid in the summer and then building it in 2 phases. The first phase would be this fall, and then there's some consolidation that needs to take place. So the second phase would be spring, summer of 2025. I think that's all really on Willow and Owen.
The second one here, as we've gone through different stormwater concerns over the years, the Hillcrest Lake, once it exceeds capacity, as designed by the topography and even in the floodplain maps, flows west to east through a bunch of backyards between Hillcrest and Owen. This is a design concept project that we're working towards, which would give us an overflow pipe that would get the water to go up Owen and up to the creek, going to the north instead of going through backyards. We've had different conversations about this path and how we could do it. And this feels like a real good step that we're on now, this project. It would eliminate a lot of insecurities about residents in that area, and it would give us a known path for the stormwater. So look forward to more information on that as we go forward. Again, this is our CIP plan, but it's our plan for the future, you know, also. So that is that one. Next one. Oh, sorry, I got 2 here. Stormwater projects. In the heavy rains we had back in 27-18, and so we've seen the significant damage at the Park District through the flooding across Elm Street, taking out softball fields, providing a lot of repair and maintenance. A way we could work to resolve that and to keep the street open is another pipe to get water at a certain level to cross from the west to the east. So this is just another example of that. And the picture on your right is Elmhurst Road 83, just before Isaac Walton Woods, where we have the same issue, where 83 is a dam stopping water, and it pools up beyond a reasonable level on the west side of 83. So replacing a small concrete pipe with a larger box culvert would help the transfer of stormwater at a certain level from one side to the other. We've talked with IDOT about this in the past, and didn't have a lot of, what's the phrase? Buy-in?
Movement, yeah.
Movement, thank you. So that's another thing that we have in our plan going forward, and again, things that make a difference that we need to start talking about now because they don't get done overnight. Dan, you want to hit the next one,
Sure.
Willow Trails?
So Willow Trails, this is another project, as Joe mentioned, has been on the books for a while, for a few years. It's been in the concept stage as we've been looking to formulate an agreement with IEMA on the funding. And I think that's one of your agenda items tonight, is to approve the agreement that we finally did receive from IEMA. But that would allocate $2.4 million plus of IEMA funding, along with a little over $800,000 of city funding to affect these changes. That will draw down inundation levels in some of the neighborhoods in and around Willow Trails, and will really be a big improvement. So adding not just pipe capacity, but stormwater storage on the park property there.
Next one, when we've talked about major stormwater projects over the years, Arlington Countryside was always on the top of the list. The east side, which that's the last project we just talked about, will make a big difference. We've talked about this Dorset area and Willow and Elm, those different areas that become basins when we have major problems. So we keep this Dorset area, it was called East Arlington Countryside for a while. This is still on our list, that as we work towards different designs and funding sources, we don't want anybody to forget about this one. We may not have the funding figured out at this point, but it's still on the future plans. Dan, any questions so far? I need to do a blast through it, but Dan, if you could talk about sidewalks?
So sidewalks, as the first project there is Wolf Road. There's a lot of different funding sources there. But as Joe mentioned, that project is officially underway now. The official start date is actually tomorrow. So we've got some signage out there. I did want to point out, we also have a project website. If any of your constituents reach out, it's wolfroadsidewalk.com, fairly easy to remember. But that'll have project updates and a lot of information. So that should be a useful tool for the project. That should be done by the fall. That's our expectation. So storm sewer will take place over the next 3 to 4 weeks, and then they'll start excavating to put the sidewalks in. The next project there is Camp McDonald Road. This project is in the engineering process currently. We're nearing the end of phase 1 engineering, the preliminary engineering. The city has received Invest in Cook funding for both phases 1 and 2 of the engineering process. We haven't identified a funding source yet for construction, but we are eyeing the ITEP will have a call for projects this August, and we will plan on submitting for ITEP funding at that point. The next project, sidewalk project, just moving down the line, is Elmhurst Road. This is filling in 2 gaps in the sidewalk on Elmhurst Road, just south of Hints. And phase 1 is just getting started right now. The city received Invest in Cook funding for phase 1. We've also applied for Invest in Cook funding for phase 2. That application just took place in the last month or so. Also, another project where we'll be looking to identify a funding source for that project. And then finally, a smaller sidewalk project. This is on Burning Bush in the Willow Trails area. This is just about a 210-foot gap in the sidewalk between Wolf Road and Milwaukee Avenue. So it's a little more manageable project from a budget standpoint that I think we put in, I want to say,
$100,000.
27.
Yeah, 27, about $100,000. It's been brought up in the past with not a lot of energy, and this last year with the park redoing things and us redoing our detention, it's become more of a focus that we want to get on the books and get something moving. It's the only piece of sidewalk between Wolf Road, or it's the only section, I should say, between Wolf Road and Milwaukee Avenue that there's no sidewalk. And we look at it as a nice piece to connect all the single family and the residential, the multifamily homes there to the park. So it's just it's another little missing link. We have a few missing links in the city. This is one of them. So that's kind of it for the sidewalk end of it. Dan mentioned Wolf Road is just getting started. Just a side note, traffic is going to be a little messed up in that area, obviously, with construction. They're going to do their best to keep everybody moving. I'm personally really excited about it. We've been talking about Wolf Road, and Joe mentioned earlier, it's nice to see things fall off the plan, the capital plan about expenses. This was one of those that just kept on getting pushed down the road for one reason or another, and we're there. And Joe should be smiling all day because we finally are going to knock this off our list for next time. So.
I would be, I'd feel better, but we're about a year late.
All right. I can't fix the clock, but we're gonna keep on these, on this plan. That kind of moves us to the sewer system. Sherry hit on the big numbers earlier. The thought process on that, is obviously we're gonna keep maintaining and improving the system. The expenses that we have each year going forward, we've done the camera work. We came out with a triage list, years back about what we really need to fix right away. We hit those spots. We did some CIP, some cured in place lining, and each year we're doing about $100,000 more in lining existing pipes where we can fix cracks and breaks and issues without having to dig up the entire section and replace it. It's much more cost effective, much more satisfying for the residents in the area because we're not digging a 10-foot deep trench down the whole backyard section or the front yard. So that expense that's on here isn't just for cameraing, it's for doing all that work. Another process we do in that is not just the lining, we do dig and fix on spots that need it and then line it afterwards. And we have root control being done, which is a company that comes in with a ecologically approved formula, and it kills the roots in the pipe, and it saves that infiltration from roots ruining the structure even more. So we have a multi-step approach, and most of that we go through the MPI program, so we get the best pricing as the whole northern suburban area. So sewer is, as long as it keeps flowing downhill, we're all happy. This slide just shows some of the areas. And then we move to the big slide with all the numbers. Proposed on this slide, we do keep kicking the can on getting a new sewer Vector truck. We have a 1999 Sterling. It's underpowered, and it doesn't have the reach it needs to, but it's been working for us. And stuff that we can't, we've been contracting out. So we're gonna keep pushing that off a year or two until we get to the point where we realize it's gonna be the logical choice. But at this point, with the extra work that we're doing on the system, we're just gonna delay that for a little while. Utility vehicle, that's a water sewer van. We had that in last year's budget. Ford finally stepped up and is taking orders, so we expect to see that this year. The rest on here, Hillcrest Lake, we've talked about basic property improvements, public safety. We mentioned in the tourism, the Winkleman Street Lighting Project. This was looked at and approved by council for some preliminary design a few years back. COVID came into play and we benched it. It's now back onto the table. We have some money in the capital fund in tourism, so we're gonna reinvest in that design and see where we're at with it, but planning it for the following year. Our city monument signs, Mayor Helmer wish from years back to have our city acknowledged with some signage on Milwaukee Avenue at the northern and the southern points. We're working, I didn't add it as a slide, I apologize to that, but we have a concept plan and some preliminary agreements. The signs would look just the same as we have at Chase Bank and Schoenbeck. One location would be just near the airport for northbound or for southbound traffic, and the other would be just south of Preiser Animal Hospital on Milwaukee Avenue. Excited that that looks like something that we can get done this year with proper permitting and engineering. So we'll move towards that. Sticking with the tourism fund, out of the capital program, an improved camera system that would connect our police department to critical views and license plates of what's happening in those areas. The police department's worked great with the hoteliers in talking about different concerns they have. So we're excited about that for this year. We get to the water fund. Any other questions on that? Sorry, I'll pause for a second. All right. The water fund, as Bob and Sherry talked about the different rate increases in the funds, the nice thing we're gonna do is we're gonna start looking at capital improvements, and actually putting numbers and projects on the board here, stuff that we need to go for. Most of our system is really healthy. The original portion of it was built for Rob Roy. We expanded to pick up Illinois American for city pressurized water and get rid of the well. And then there was an extension to Wheeling Road and up to Lake Claire area. It's great for us, but there's a lot that it's missing. Our tanks are now aged. We need to do some renovations of our water storage tanks. We currently hold about 500 and some odd thousand gallons of water. That's the hills that are sitting next to the water storage building. Many cities have their tanks elevated. We're fortunate we have them below grade. There's pluses and minuses for us. It's a good thing, but occasionally you have to empty them out and clean out the sedimentation, fix some minor spalling in concrete and things like that. So that's going to be on the plan for this next year coming up. And the complaints about the apron out front and the standing water and ice buildup. So we're going to put a new driveway on it. That's for the next fiscal year. Moving forward, we have a couple other things that are going to help benefit the city and the system and our reliability. We've been working with the Village of Wheeling on an interconnect from their water system to ours. That way, if we lost pressure, we always can rely on our backup water pump or another interconnect with Illinois American. But if for some reason those sources weren't available, or we could get water from Wheeling and the same, the interconnect could be open for two-way travel only in an emergency situation. There's a lot of rules and restrictions towards this type of connection. Rules on both of our ends, the village and the city. So it'd be a two-man operation to supply emergency water to the other community. It helps us get another source to keep everyone up and running. Down the road, we have another thing on here for obviously pump replacement or things that we have to do. But in 26, 27, we have the design for a water main going down Cauldron. Cauldron connects Camp McDonald Road and Newcastle, which is the back of Lake Claire. Our system currently is not looped, so there's certain areas that if we had a failure, we would have a good percentage of our residents without water service. This pipe up Cauldron would give us the ability to loop our system and provide water during an outage or a break in different areas of the town. When we get a little farther along, we can talk about residents and possible connections for people along that path. As we talk about, we've done SSAs for certain areas. We'll get into that, but this is a plan that we've been talking about, and we need to start moving forward on it to get it out of the wish list and get it on paper. And the last one that's on there is Camp McDonald Water Main Extension. It would be the opportunity to connect the east and the west. We currently purchase water from Mount Prospect that handles City Hall in this vicinity, right where we're at. And it goes to the police department, and that's as far as it goes east. Our Illinois American feed goes up to Wheeling Road. So between the police department and Wheeling Road, there's a project draft to put a water main in. It would give us the ability to buffer our system at our own choices, like an interconnect with Wheeling. This would be our own choice when we needed water or not. And it also may give us a choice of providers down the road, depending on rates and agreements and things like that. I don't want to get too deep into the weeds on that, but it gives us flexibility down the road if feasible. So a lot in the water system. We have a little fund balance, and you know, it's that rainy day fund, but you need to assign projects to it. And we haven't had this good conversation yet, or at least not to this level in the past. So that's the big and skinny on that. Any questions on that page? There's a lot going on. I think the last one on here, the last picture, this has been talked about for years. Behind Public Works, there's an area of land that in the past was used for dumping of excessive spoil from dig-ups and projects around the city. This area, we have a plan to excavate it back down to grade, bring in some gravel, level out that area, and use it for storage. with a future concept of putting in a 2 or 3 car garage or storage building. A lot of it for police use. We have a bunch of their equipment and vehicles in the side of the Public Works building. And the police department is lacking on storage for their extra stuff. The police department itself is a small single-car garage, which is more of a storage locker than a garage. So we do have the concept that if this gets leveled out, there'd be room for a future project to get some well-needed storage and move things around. The last slide was the water loop we talked about. That slide actually shows it, just you have to orientate it. It's north is to the right, so, but at this point, not a real need for the photo, so. That's kind of the Public Works, big picture of it. We cover water, sewer, tourism, the metro station Sherry covered, there's nothing added to that part of it. Sherry, did I miss anything?
No, I think we covered that all. Thanks, guys, thanks.
Dan?
Any questions from anybody on any of this? Lots of numbers going around?
We explained it in about 45 minutes, but it took months to come up with all the details. So on this side, there was definitely more than 45 minutes of time put into it. Oh my God.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much.
And if anybody has any questions, they can always call Sherry or whatever department head they might have a question for on their portion of the budget. Okay, so we'll move on. Item 5, appointments, confirmation, and proclamations. We have none. Item 6, public comment on agenda matters. Do we have any?
No.
No? Okay. Item 7, we do not have a consent agenda for today. So item 8, old business. Item A, ordinance 02403, staff memo and ordinance approving the sale, donation, destruction of surplus property. This is the second reading. So I look for a motion just to get it on the table.
So moved, Morgan Adams.
Second, Cameron.
We have a motion and a second. Are there any questions about this? Okay, roll call, please.
Alderman Dolick.
Aye.
Alderman Morgan Adams.
Aye.
Alderman Cameron.
Aye.
Alderman Anderson.
Motion passes. 9, new business. Item A, Resolution 2413, staff memo and resolution authorizing an intergovernmental grant agreement between the State of Illinois, Illinois Emergency Management Agency, and Office of Homeland Security and the City of Prospect Heights for the Willow Trail Stormwater Management Project for an amount of $2,417,127. Could we get a motion to approve, and then we'll discuss?
So move.
Second, Cameron.
We have a motion and a second. Unless anybody has any questions about this, I think we've talked about this for a long time. And this is just the finalization of the paperwork to get it done.
We have the press here. This might be the story of the night. Just as background for this has been discussed, this is a community projects grant. It's a competitive process. We're very thankful that Representative Schakowsky selected ours among others to go forward to present to Congress. There's some work that we spent the last year with Illinois Emergency Management Agency and FEMA. Had to make some clearances there and make some submittals. But this week, we did receive this intergovernmental agreement, and this greenlights the project. We can't spend any money before this. Now we have money behind it. As mentioned, that the federal share of this is $2.4 million. City share, the local match is $985,000. Needless to say, without this level of support, this project would not be able to move forward. It was identified among about 2011, after the city and the whole region had just a couple terrible stormwater events. The city contracted with Christopher Burke Engineering. They did a very good blueprint of stormwater management needs, about 2011, 2012. This and Arlington Countryside are two of the 5 projects that were identified. Mark referenced some of the others. But thankfully, in a few years' time, we're making progress with this. So the schedule for it is, and I know these things always seem to be a moving target, unfortunately never seem to move closer, but the anticipated bid letting is January and February, with a spring construction start next year. So hopefully about this time next year, we'll be underway with this project. And it will greatly impact the area around Willow Trails Park. Areas, if you identify where the park is, to the east of the park, as well as to the north and northeast of the park. It's going to entail, as referenced, a detention basin, and it's also going to provide some oversized stormwater pipes. Dan has been working on the engineering for some time with this. This isn't a 100-year storm project like we're doing at Willow Road and the slough. This is basically, it's like this will provide relief for storms that are roughly in like the maybe 10 to 25-year cycle.
Correct.
Okay.
Right. And we'll provide benefits certainly for storms above that, but that's really the design standard is more the 10 to 25.
Is there anything else that you'd like to add as the architect of this project?
That's about it. A big source of the delay has been one of the things that IEMA does require is a benefit cost analysis. They like to make sure that the stormwater modeling supports that the damages due to flooding that would be reduced are outweighed by the cost, or I'm sorry, that those outweigh the cost of the project. So there really is more benefit than cost. And so that's something that they were able to confirm last summer. And then since then, it's been just the process of getting the paperwork to this point.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. So with that, we have a first and a second. We get a roll call?
Alderman Anderson.
Aye.
Alderman Dolick.
Aye.
Alderman Morgan Adams.
Aye.
Alderman Cameron.
Aye.
Motion passes. Item B, Resolution 2414, staff memo and resolution authorizing the City of Prospect Heights participation in the Central Management Services rock salt contract joint participation agreement for the purchase of rock salt. Again, just get it on the table. Can we get a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second, Morgan Adams.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions?
Okay, I get those. Thank
Mark, if you want
Um,
to just tell us what it is?
Yep. Each year we purchase rock salt, or typically each year we get rock salt through the state of Illinois, through the CMS program. Again, we're getting a better price because there's over 520 folks that join in on this program. This year, they've asked to have basically a certification from a council or a governing body from each of those 520, stating that the person that's asking for the salt is approved to purchase the salt. That's what this is. It's just basically documents what we've been doing all this time. Each time we purchase salt, it's maybe $8,000 a truckload, but in the course of a year, we plan on $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 worth of salt that we're going to spend. So I'm guessing that they may have had some issues with other partners, and now they want some documentation that says the guy that's asking for it is approved. That's all this is.
Any questions? Roll call, please.
Alderman Morgan Adams.
Aye.
Alderman Cameron.
Aye.
Alderman Dolick.
Aye.
Alderman Anderson.
Aye.
Motion passes. Item C, Resolution 2415, staff memo and resolution authorizing renewal agreement for contracted financial management services with Lauterbach and Amen. We have a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second, Anderson.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions? Something we do,
To the-
you guys have been doing this for us for how many years now? Long time? 5 years. So we have a motion and a second. If there's no questions, roll call, please.
Alderman Cameron.
Aye.
Alderman Anderson. Alderman Dolick.
Aye.
Alderman Morgan Adams.
Aye.
Motion passes.
We'll keep you now.
Item D, Resolution R2416, Staff Memo and Resolution providing for City Council direction and authorization for interfund transfer from general fund to capital improvement, police pension, and SSA 1 funds. Do we need a motion to approve?
So moved, Morgan Adams. Second, Cameron.
We have a motion and a second. This was discussed tonight about what the purpose was, and if anybody has any further questions. If not, roll call, please.
Alderman Dolick.
Aye.
Alderman Morgan Adams.
Aye.
Alderman Cameron.
Aye.
Alderman Anderson.
Motion passes. Item E, ordinance O2405, an ordinance amending liquor license A2 to 4 AM all nights, first reading. This is just a first reading, so if anybody has any questions or wants to discuss it, yep.
I apologize for the interruption. I just received a text from George through his brother Jimmy that he's ill and couldn't make it tonight. He apologizes for not being here to answer some questions, but will be here at a future meeting.
Okay. Oh, everybody should have seen the, second?
Yeah.
They saw that, so
Yeah.
I guess we can, it'll come up at our next meeting for a second reading, and if you have any questions between now and then, you can call Joe or Dan.
Okay.
Item F, ordinance O2406, staff memo and ordinance establishing water rates for the fiscal year 24-25, first reading. And we had discussion on this, and if you have any further questions, you can contact the staff, and this will be on our next meeting for approval. Staff, elected officials, and commission reports. February financial report presented by Assistant Finance Director Bob Tannehill.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. I'd like to present the financial report for February of 2024. It's been 10 months ending, and we're at 83% of the year has passed. Our city total revenues represent about almost 75% of the budget, and our expenses reflect about 57% of the budget. Some significant, the general fund significant revenues are in line with our budgeted expectations. And just a note, the vehicle stickers are still coming in, steady stream are coming in. This is the final week for everyone to get your city sticker before April 1st, when the rate goes up about 1.5 times the sticker price. So if you can, please get in. We have people here to help you out and take care of that. So other than that, all the other funds in here, the water sewer fund is right where it's supposed to be, as in revenues and expenses. And also just to talk about DEA, and we talked about that today, they did receive a little over $29,000 this month from the DEA seizure funds. So over the last couple of months, there's been some money coming in from those seizures that we talked about. That still a long list of those, and those have to be vetted through the federal courts before they can start distributing it to us, and they look at the percentage on that. So tourism fund is at about 85% of budget. So like we were saying before, that the revenues for the hotel looks like they're coming back. Other than that, everything looks to be in where it's supposed to be and in shape. So if there's any questions on the financial report?
Any questions? Thank you. We'll go with elected official reports to my left. Anybody have any?
Yeah, just
report?
me. Just,
Go ahead.
thank you. Just wanted to make an announcement that the Greater Wheeling Area Chamber is putting their community guide together. So businesses interested in putting in an ad, this would be a good time to forward their interest. And that includes, of course, our e-newsletter and our quarterly newsletter for anyone who'd like to place an ad. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Anybody to the right? No reports? Okay, we'll go on to staff. Deputy Chief, nothing?
No, sir.
Dan?
I'm going to sound like a broken record, but we received the reports for 3 more people who've been approached by the paving contractor fraud group. Last weekend with the nice weather, they were out again. So at least they're calling and asking first, are these guys legit? So hopefully they're hearing this. Please, if it's unsolicited, ask them to go away. And you reach out to us and we can help give you a listing of a number of registered and bonded companies for you to do your homework and do your pricing. So,
Okay, thank you.
you're welcome.
Anybody else? Okay. All right. Approval of the warrants. Will clerk please read the warrants?
Sure. The general fund total amounted to $180,595.89. We had wire payments on March 8th, 2024 payroll that amounted to $185,347.45. The February Illinois Municipal Retirement Fund payment was $14,502.83, bringing our total warrant amount to $380,446.17 for our council's approval tonight, please.
Okay, I look for a motion to approve.
So moved. Anderson.
Second, Cameron.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions? Roll call, please.
Alderman Anderson,
Aye.
Alderman Dolick,
Aye.
Alderman Morgan Adams,
Aye.
Alderman Cameron.
Aye.
Motion passes. I don't think we have any public comments or public comment on non-agenda matters. So we can go right to
Oh.
lines from the newspaper.
Was there any updates on the neighbors with no homes with the chickens as pets? I know that was discussed in the meeting on Wednesday.
So the question was, because they probably can't hear you on the recording here, that's all right. But this question was about, is there anything going on about the chicken ordinance? So we'll have Dan comment on that.
Thank you for asking. Last Wednesday night, the Zoning Board of Appeals held another public meeting specifically to talk about the issue. Again, there were not as many in attendance as the first meeting in January, but the discussion, staff gave a report and what our findings of the research that the zoning board asked for. During the meeting, information was provided by both sides, those in favor of keeping all the chickens and those who wanted to ban roosters specifically. The in opposition weren't in opposition to chickens, they were in opposition in the roosters. After a lengthy discussion, both sides agreed to work together to come up with some ideas and solutions. The Zoning Board of Appeals directed myself to start working on a draft ordinance to present in 60 days for debate. Hard numbers of what's going to be coming down have not been established yet, but that will be the discussion at the next presentation in, I believe, April, May.
60 days, you
Or actually, May, yeah, the May, June-ish.
For sure. Awesome.
So it's still a work in progress, but at least both sides now see that there's an area that they do need to work together to come up with a right, good solution.
All right, thanks, Dan. Appreciate
You're
it.
welcome.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you.
It's also on the web, too, if you want to see some of the citizen statements and so forth.
Gotcha. Thank you so much.
All right, item 15, adjournment. I look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Anderson.
Second, Cameron.
We have a first and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. We are adjourned.